They're like the averagest team in the championship right now.
I mean, when your logo is like, what is that, like a baby lamb?
It's basically like Christ symbolism, the
Yeah.
crest.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't normally bode well in it from a competitive standpoint.
Yeah.
You know? Like if your competitive symbol is a sacrifice, it's probably not gonna bode very well.
They don't even play in wool jerseys, so they're not even like
Right.
living it out.
Bunch of hoaxes is what they are. Bunch of frauds. Okay.
All frauds.
All frauds. Preston Fraud End. Welcome to You'll Never Talk Alone. Joseph Craven, your friend Joseph Craven, joined by Alex Lebel. Joining you here, the first time in a couple of weeks, I guess, we've had a real episode. Schedule has not been super friendly. Schedule/illness has not been super friendly to the YNTA ranks. And so the last episode we put out was, of course, at what we now know as kind of the tail end of our roughest patch of the season so far, but it was also the tail end of our podcasting, as it was 25 minutes of fart noises. But we are back now, a little bit healthier and a little bit more willing to talk about Liverpool, but at least having a little bit more to talk about after two significantly better results in the Premier League, combined with what was kind of a, maybe finally shaking things off a bit match against United in the FA Cup that, we didn't care much about. But here we are. So, how are you feeling now, Alex? Just real quick, after having kind of, I guess, weathered the storm. I guess kind of having gotten on the other end of this absolute nonsense that we had to deal with. How many was it? 5, 6 matches in a row without a victory? I forget.
Yeah, it felt like 200.
Yeah,
it was 3.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was three matches without a victory, and then, but it was like they were runs of 3 matches without victories sandwiched around the victory over a group of children in the FA Cup.
Right. So, league victories or lack of league victories. And to be able to respond well with, 2 victories in a row, 3 goal victories against, decent squads that are up there in the top 6 of the league right now. Unless Brighton holds on to beat Tottenham, which would be hilarious. Then I think we can go ahead and say that Tottenham deserves to be automatic relegation team.
Yeah.
No question. But 3 goals apiece in matches against Tottenham and West Ham, who, again, it's weird to say that West Ham is the best team in London right now.
Yeah.
But that was what they were going into the match. That's crazy. We mentioned we finally were able to start scoring some goals again against United in the FA Cup, even though that was a loss. But a little bit more of kind of a light at the end of the tunnel sort of thing. The team's looking a little bit more like their old selves. Jurgen Klopp is acting more like his old self. Like, I don't know if he had some stuff going on that was stressing him out more than just coaching for weeks now, but he's been gruff and complaining a lot. And he actually, in the past couple of weeks, has all of a sudden just seemed more like Jurgen Klopp. And I don't know what changed, but something has changed. Something seems to be working. Based on what you could tell, Alex, these first or these last couple of matches here, what seems to be different about the team that is working once again?
We seem more open to trying things on the field. We're not so robotic, and it kind of just stems from mental tiredness. And it seems like the team talked about it, but we kept getting into the same passing rhythms, trying the same kind of attacking patterns over and over again. Of the center backs pass it to one of the mids pass it to a fullback. They go down the line, they hit a cross, we don't do anything with it. And these past few matches, even the loss against United in the FA Cup, we saw a lot more variance in attack, and we saw a lot more players willing to think outside the box and maybe push beyond that extra bit of tiredness and extra bit of mental fatigue from the stress of having to deal with all of the crap we've dealt with all season.
Yeah.
And it's yielding results. I mean, we scored so many different types of goals, and most of them were not off of crosses, which should hopefully lead the players to think, wow, maybe this way is actually more successful.
Right.
Additionally, we also overcame the astute pundit observation that Thiago is the main player holding us back, and he's terrible, and he's the worst thing to happen to the league and the continent of Europe.
Where was any of that coming from? Because I never saw like a source. I saw like some random Twitter people who would sit around going, yeah, I mean, he just threw off our form entirely. And I was like, yeah, but like there's only so much you can get from Twitter fans in general anyway. But where was the source? Where did that idea even come from?
I think what happened is a lot of the pundits and journalists were being snarky for a bit, and then they started believing their own snark that like, oh, Liverpool haven't been winning and Thiago is back in the team, so maybe this joke is actually real. And that always ends up being how the coverage goes. I mean, we saw it today where the American-based coverage was sympathizing with Jurgen Klopp after lambasting him for all of his decisions for the past month. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a little bit of the fickle nature of coverage. But, I mean, he's been a valuable asset, and we've just been making up for our deficiency in the middle of defense by stepping up our game elsewhere. I mean, we've seen individual players step up. We've seen the team as a cohesive unit step up and do more. And, I mean, the best form of defense is attack, and that's kind of the approach we're taking, where we just have the ball most of the time, and we're not letting anyone really get close to our goal.
It's interesting to me because it seemed like the dire center back situation that the team was dealing with, for the most part, initially the focus was, well, let's just really focus on making sure that we are good to go at the back. And so we had a lot of these matches in which, I mean, we weren't giving up goals, but we weren't scoring goals because it was just kind of like it almost felt like we were so nervous about not giving up goals and being able to cover for like the lack of depth and the injury crisis back there and all of that. It seemed like that was the focus more than anything else. And it seems like at some point now we've gotten comfortable enough with that. And it could just be because like Hendo, the leader of the team, and especially the vocal leader of the team, has, stepped back into, he's been asked to play that center back role more. And so he's able to kind of coach from the back line, that it instills more confidence in the rest of the squad. I don't know. But something seems to have worked here in the past couple of weeks where we've gone from, okay, let's try really hard to make sure we cover up for our lack of center backs, to, all right, whatever, who cares about that? We're doing well enough. We really need to do better in attack. And it seems like we've kind of grown comfortable knowing that, all right, you know what? Like, Nat Phillips might be a little error prone, but honestly, he's going to do pretty well for himself back there. Hendo, this is what gets me also. Hendo was a terrible number 6.
Yeah.
Right? He was a terrible, when we asked him to try to be a defensive mid, he wasn't good at it.
It was like, hated it.
Yeah,
he did not like it.
He was bad. Like he just was not enjoying it. It seemed so unnatural for him. And then the moment we're like, Hendo, I'm sorry, man, you got to play center back. All of a sudden, he's like, yeah, it turns out I'm great at this.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. But anyway, so all that happens, and it just seems like the team has finally, after having to just kind of like deal with the nonsense for a little bit, the team is now comfortable with the nonsense and has kind of just, weathered that storm. I think I've already used that term once in this episode, so I'm not going to use it anymore. But they, and they're bouncing back now. It just seems like something there has finally clicked where it's like, okay, all right, fine. Like, That's what we had to deal with, and we have dealt with it well enough. We don't really have to worry about that being the issue anymore. We have to be confident in the attack, and we've started to see it once again in the past 3 matches, basically since the Burnley loss. So, Alex, let's take it match by match now. All right, let's talk specifically, and we'll start with that Burnley match because we didn't actually really talk about it, obviously, on the pod. We put out that joke episode and haven't had a chance. Serious. Yeah, that's a completely serious episode.
Those were my actual thoughts.
We put out that episode and then we got busy. So yeah, let's talk. First of all, the Burnley match is just like the pit of despair. And I don't know. I mean, do you think that the team had to hit that brand new low in order to finally bounce back from that? I mean, that is one of those things that sometimes has to happen, where sometimes you are, as a group of competitors, you're so concerned about how bad things might be that until they get there, you're unsure of how you can grapple with it, you know. But what do you think? What your assessment of that Burnley match, real quick, and the response to it now that we've kind of gotten past that?
I mean, it was we thought we've had a few of these throughout the season, but it was definitely the low point of the season. It was after that really bad United match where a couple of things didn't go our way, but we also maybe scraped by with a 0-0. It was just a weird game. And then Burnley...
I will say, by the way, that I had a couple of friends that are United fans that after that match texted me and just went, man, that match was terrible.
Yeah.
No one enjoyed it. We were all sitting around going, man, that wasn't good. United fans watching it and just going, that just wasn't even entertaining. You know, it just was bad.
And it just continued into the Burnley match. I mean, we didn't really have much invention. We looked tired. We looked just out of ideas. We didn't really have a good balance to the team. We didn't get yet another handball call that has been a handball all year. And then we can see the soft penalty where it looks like a penalty. And then when you look at it again, you're like, oh, he definitely just jumped and left his foot down and made all of that himself.
Yep.
And that was definitely a turning point. I think that was the start of the stories emerging that like Klopp and the players sat down and just like talked everything out. And you could see the results of that in the next match. But really just Burnley was like, it was the culmination of every problem we've had all year. Maybe with the missing element of something that we saw in the United FA Cup match of the center back problem being a direct issue. The Burnley match was an example of all of the knock-on effects of the injuries and specifically the center back issue.
Yeah, the Burnley match was weird because like the team didn't play well enough to get a result, right? But then also the team got kind of screwed over by the factors that played into the actual result. So it was this weird combination of like officiating messed up a couple of obvious spots. At the same time, I don't think if you had removed those points that I would have felt confident that Liverpool could have done anything because we just didn't look like it, you know? It just really struggling more, looked, continued to look lifeless. Yeah, I think you're right that it was just one of those things that once we got done with it, it seems to be like that was okay. Like the team had to sit down and kind of have that talk and everything. Jurgen Klopp is a manager that has... he has plan A and there is no plan B, you know? Mm-hmm. He's that type of guy who's like, no. Like we have this that we work with. And when it works, it's working great. And when it's not working, we just need to work harder at it. And I think that was, I think probably that low point is one of the points in which he has to get as close as he gets to having a plan B. You know, and he has to look at it and just go, okay, like, the players we're going to have this little meeting and the players are going to have to say, all right, look, this is what we need to do. We think that we need to be doing better, all of that. But something seems to have changed because that was the moment then in which the old Jurgen Klopp returned. You know,
Yeah.
that was it. And I don't know exactly what was said. I don't know what was going on. I don't know. He even said in the post-match interview today after the West Ham victory, he said in there, the reporter asked, okay, like, so, what seems to have worked? He goes, I don't know. He's like, we've said a lot of things and we've talked about a lot in the past few weeks. He goes, and I think in just the past week, we finally said the right thing. And sometimes that's what it takes. You keep looking for the solution, you keep looking for the answer in the training pitch until finally it just clicks. And when you run a system like he does, then that's what happens. But all right, so and you mentioned that United FA match is the one match in which we've seen that the center back issues were the reason that the defeat happened. Anything else to take from that match, though? It was the match in which we started to return to a little bit more positive attacking form. Mo Salah, of course, was looking like old Mo Salah again. Anything that you would think we have to take from that?
I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that we looked like a team with ideas again. And I mean, in the first United match, you almost saw Mo shirk away from the challenge of Luke Shaw. And then in this next match, you saw him say, like, all right, no, he's Luke Shaw, I'm Mo Salah. This is not going to happen again. And he just outsmarted him and just outplayed him. His clever runs with his play, with his movement. Mo especially looked more like someone that you didn't really know what to expect from, in a good way, because in the matches we weren't doing very well, it was kind of obvious what he was going to do every time. He was going to cut in and then play Trent on the overlap. And this time we saw him and Bobby syncing up and thinking beyond, let's spray it out wide. Let's maybe try to pass through these defenders that aren't all that good. So really the performance was so much better, and we should have beaten United if not for a center back that is still growing in the game and should not have been expecting to even play this season, much less play like 5-10 matches for us.
Yep.
And then a midfielder making a midfielder challenge in an area that he wouldn't typically be in, a challenge that you see around the center circle 200 times a game, it feels like. But this time it just happened to be on the outside of our box, and it was a great free kick. And again, the people kind of slating Thiago for ducking. I mean, he just got back from injury. You want him to sacrifice his entire skull to get smashed in the face by a Bruno Fernandes free kick? I thought that was a smart move for the longevity of his career to not concuss himself.
I think we make a lot of jokes about Bruno Fernandes only being the penalty scorer or whatever it is, but you could not pay me enough money to stand in front of a Bruno Fernandes free kick. Like, when he's in a position like that, the man has just got the placement for it. Like, you got to give him the credit in that situation for what he is good at. And he's certainly good at that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, how old is Reece Williams? He's what?
I think he's 19 or 20.
Yeah.
Like, he's a kid, and he was playing non-league last year.
Exactly. Like, to not just be a teenager, because I'm pretty sure he cannot be 20 yet. I'm pretty sure he's still a teen. But to still be that young and that, and to not have like much competitive experience on a more professional level, to be asked to do what he's asked to do, it's, props to him for being able to handle it as well as he has. But you see why even someone like a Nat Phillips, who we know the ceiling is much lower with him on what you see is kind of what you're probably going to get with him. But you see where, like, he's probably not going to pull the 19-year-old mistakes that a Reece Williams will. So it's like neither of them are great options, but that with either one of them, like, you would like to get Williams more experience, but you also know that Nat's probably the one that's going to stop the ball more often. Maybe not do much else more than that, the Adrian of center backs. But anyway, so yeah, 3-2 the loss there. But as we kind of, I think we all are like, okay, FA Cup, whatever. It was a bad draw also to get United this early on in the FA Cup. Whatever, get it out of there. Let's focus on the league and Champions League, because then we've had these 2 league victories that we've already kind of alluded to in non-specific terms. But in specific terms, it's 2 league victories that have, after all of this that has gone on, kept us in third place. Kept us in third place going into a week in which we can go up against a 17th place Brighton team, who, right now is beating Tottenham as we record. Who knows how this will end up, but it is Tottenham, so Jose will have plenty of excuses as to why it's worked out this way. And then a build-up to a Manchester City team that, if we end up playing, like our old selves, like if we are continuing to get back into that old form, then that could actually be a decent match. It kind of was looking for a bit there, like, well, City's on the rise and everyone else is starting to fall off, so this is probably when they seize total control. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe we still have just enough going for us to be able to do something against City, even with all of the, still injury concerns, still kind of some rust, still kind of some questions as to whether we can consistently attack like we are used to attacking, all of that. But these 2 victories, 3-1 against Tottenham, 3-1 against West Ham, you can't overstate the importance of them, Alex, but I'm going to ask you to do so. Please, overstate the importance. No, how important are those 2 victories, those 6 points to come out of that?
They're absolutely massive. I mean, during our blip, there was talk of, we're not in the title race anymore. It's over. We're just in a top 4 battle. But really, this league, where everyone is not very good, has kind of proven that if you can just find a way to continually win, you are in the title race. I mean, that's basically how City got back in the title race. I mean, obviously they started playing a lot better, but the fact that they were able to just continually turn out wins when everybody else was dropping points left and right, now they're top of the table. And they could very well drop points again. Look at how they started the season. I mean, everybody's got dips in form in them because no one is allowed to rest, and so all the players are exhausted. And so as long as you can stay around and continue to get results, you're in it. And this reminded everyone that, we're actually still pretty good, even when we don't have any defenders. Because, I mean, we have always said our fullbacks are our best midfielders. So they're just very defensive wingers, and the center backs are our true defenders. And we don't really have any of those anymore. I mean, we had one for
Turns
one
out
half.
Our fullbacks are our best midfielders. Our midfielders are our best center backs. It's the craziest thing.
Our strikers are our best goalkeepers is the next thing we're about to find out.
Well, you saw Mo Salah with the headed clearance late in this West Ham match. He's a great defender.
Flip-flop the team, play backwards. That's what we need to be doing. But it's just like we played in a way that countered our weak points right now. I mean, we're so dominant against Spurs. The only time they threatened was, there were 2 times where they threatened. One was the goal that was called back for offside, which finally we get a call like that our way. We have not gotten that. I mean, we've had the most goals overturned, and half of them have been like sneezes offsides because the Premier League doesn't know what they're doing. And then the goal. That was the only other time when Højbjerg hit a wonderful strike, and there's not really much anybody could have done about it. But other than that, I don't think they really had any touches in our box or anything. We were completely dominant. It was the extension a bit of the match at Anfield, and there was no way that Jose was going to say the best team lost on Thursday, because they just got completely played off the pitch, and we looked like ourselves. Their defense was terrible, and we took advantage. We were lethal again, and that's something we've been missing because our shots have been wayward and bad. And it's like, because I know we've talked in our text group, like, we don't shoot enough, and we did have a lot of shots on the stats, but they were bad shots, and those don't really count. And so we were finally playing with our heads and our bodies again, and we got players to step up. We had Trent back to his best. We had Genie playing out of his mind. We had Mo being super dangerous. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's it was just classic Klopp versus Mourinho at that point. Like, it just is very satisfying to know that Klopp kind of just has his number. But along with that, you go back to that first matchup, that 2-1 victory. The only dangerous Tottenham players in that first matchup were Højbjerg and Serge Aurier. Those were the only two that looked like they were, like, Højbjerg was looking dangerous. Aurier was like, he was the only defender that looked like he was like doing anything, like he could take possession from us whenever he wanted to, that sort of thing.
He left at halftime.
And so he leaves at halftime in this one. Højbjerg gets his one shot. He's still the most dangerous, but outside of that, like, we kind of shut him down. So it's almost like we pinpointed the two guys that were dangerous the first time around, and they were kind of echoing it again. But we were able to pinpoint him and take him out of consideration this time around, especially Aurier, who, according to rumors, straight up left entirely, left the stadium and was so mad. So interesting stuff. But I think it's huge. Like, I think you're right. It was a continuation of the first match. And it was what we kind of needed to continue building this confidence, to be able to say, okay, like, we're kind of out of the woods a little bit. This is, the adage always says that, like, you never want to draw. Like, you don't win, a title when you draw. This is the season where you can. I mean, the top 3 teams, City 5 draws, United 5 draws, us 7 draws.
2 billion draws.
2 billion draws. 18 draws out of our 21 matches. No, it just, like, this is the season in which you can draw and actually still come out with something, because every team is in this boat where, like, no one is putting together the dominant run. No one's going to be getting close to 90 points to win things. It's just not going to happen. And so as long as you can just put together some sort of run of actual victories, exactly what you were just saying, like City has done, like we're starting to do right now, we could head into this matchup against City, that depending on what United ends up doing, we could shape up to have another first, second place matchup on our hands here. Although I guess by the time the matchup against United happened, we had slipped to third, right? I think City had jumped, or someone had jumped into second place.
Yeah, I think we were in either third or fourth.
Yeah, so we had actually slipped down just because of results earlier in the day. But anyway, all that to say, we're still right up in there. And it's fascinating to me because this has felt like a disaster of a run, yet we're still in third. I think, I forget if you maybe sent something in the group text, a tweet or something that someone had just shared earlier today of, like, or maybe I just saw it on Twitter, of how it's like, oh yeah, well, it's funny to look at a player like Mohamed Salah and feel like he's having an off year, and then look and he's still 3 goals up in the Golden Boot chase for the season.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird year. And it's just kind of taken like like the lows hit hard because we never had a chance to celebrate being champions last year. But once, like, the lows are corrected, we look around and go, oh, wait a second. It's not nearly as bad as it felt, because everyone is struggling this year. It's just bizarre. It's a weird place to find ourselves right now. But I'm glad that, we're able to find ourselves with only 3 losses and 40 points, only 4 points off of the top team in the league,
Yeah, I mean, being in third in general is an amazing achievement for this squad. I mean, yes, we're defending champions. And yes, like you said, the lows feel like lows, partially because there's just no time between matches. So if there's like 2 not wins back to back, it feels like everything is going wrong because that's only 2 days apart. But I mean, the fact that we have even been able to field a team is enough of an achievement by itself, that we've scrounged up the players, that we've talked to enough parents to allow their kids to come play for us, and found some guest players, because we just have so many injuries. I mean, there were stats doing the rounds that we've missed through injury. Our players have missed a combined 170 games in the Premier League and the Champions League, and that's almost 80 more than any other team. And I think we're missing an average of 6 players through injury per game. Like, that's insane, especially when you think of how frequently we're playing and how many different competitions we're playing in. I mean, we saw just in addition to the knock-on effects of not having true center backs, we just saw the knock-on effects of 15 players carrying the entire workload of a season and a half in 6 months throughout most of this run. And now we're kind of coming through the other side of that and revitalizing our energy levels. We're having to rotate. I mean, we saw Mane pick up a minor muscle injury today. We saw Bobby having to be rested from the start for fears of him doing the same. We saw Milner come off against West Ham because of the Klopp saying he looked like he was about to pull his hamstring, so he pulled him off. And we're having to cycle through as many players as we can.
Klopp pulled Milner off because he knew Curtis Jones was about to change the game.
He's a clairvoyant, that man. We're also not really using that many different players off the bench. I mean, I was talking to friends of the pod, Clint and Lee, at halftime, and I said, well, we're going to see Curtis, Ox, and Bobby come on, so we better hope that they change the game. And we're so easy to predict who our subs are going to be. And I mean, we're somehow managing to do it. But yeah, just being where we are, being involved in the conversation at all, despite missing half of the team for most of the season, is pretty incredible. And yeah, it sucks when we don't play well, but you got to consider, of course we're going to play like this. We have no defenders.
Right. Yeah. We hadn't talked specifically much about the West Ham match because, by the time it was done, I felt like there wasn't much to talk about specifically from it because it was kind of it was an awkward match and it was a lot of backups in there. And then it just ended up the second half was sheer dominance. But it was an interesting one because in the first half, we're all texting back and forth and we're sitting around and I'm like, Origi is obviously not playing well. And there was questions beforehand of why is he our option here for what we're trying to do anyway? But then we come out and we're playing like a diamond. Midfield diamond, which is not something we've done in years. And for whatever reason on the diamond, Origi and Mo are running out to the wings. And Shaq is this I don't know, shadow striker false 9 something in the middle. And it made no sense whatsoever. And we're all sitting there going, the only chance that was really good in the entire first half was Thiago's incredible pass right towards the end, which he was out on the wing.
Yeah.
And Origi was in the middle. I'm like, isn't that how this formation's supposed to? And so, yeah, the second half opens up and all of a sudden the team's just okay, we're going to play entirely through the middle now. And Mo is unbelievable. Shaq puts in that ridiculous pass to him that he just collects for that second goal. It was fascinating. We're starting to see the team make a few more. My entire point with all this is that we're starting to see the team make a few more little adjustments like that. A little bit more flexibility, not a plan B necessarily, but a little bit more flexibility on plan A. We're starting to see that kind of pay off just a little bit, it seems like. So, Alex, are you confident moving forward that we can actually keep with some of the success we're seeing right now? Or are you still worried that at any point we can kind of drop this form again?
It's so much is dependent on player availability. That's been the key reason that City's been able to put together a run. I mean, they've missed some key players for sure. I mean, but they haven't really had Aguero most of the season. They're missing KDB, but they've had everyone that they've needed for most of this run. Whereas we, from match to match, from day to day, don't know who's going to be fit. We don't know who's going to be announced as pulling a muscle before a match or after a match. I mean, we lost Fabinho, we lost Mane. So it's all dependent on the player's ability to deal with playing so frequently. And you mentioned we've got Brighton coming up. That's Wednesday. That's in a few days. There's just no rest at all. And that this season is so much more about kind of the intangible stuff than last season was. Last season was about tactical dominance and managing games and mixing things up with subs. This season is so much about like momentum and confidence, where if you're able to, if you feel like you can win, you can win. If you're not feeling it today, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And I mean, apart from that, it's about availability, like we mentioned. So it could change at any moment, but that's also true of every other team that we're up against. That no one knows who's going to be on their day at any given day, because there's so many days needed in such a short condensed window that it's so hard. Like normal people struggle to go to the gym 2 days in a row, and these guys are playing 90-minute matches every 3 days. So it's just
having
amazing.
to casually cover 6 or 7 miles a match or however long it is. Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, and I'll wait till we move on to the West Ham match formally before I make the point.
No, go ahead. No, please do, because I don't have much else to add to the West Ham match. So you please add what you need to before we move on to transfer news. What?
Yeah. And you look at how we've managed Curtis Jones's minutes, and you've kind of seen the fruits of that labor today. Because I know there's been a lot of discussion amongst the fan base of like, oh, he's young, he should just be able to play all these matches. And on one hand, yes, that makes sense. He's got a lot more energy. But two, he's never played a top flight season, and this is a lot to step up from sometimes playing against the team in training and getting a few minutes here and there, but mostly playing against kids his own age, and then playing against a bunch of grown men, many of whom are international quality. So we've definitely been taking care of him, and it worked. I mean, you saw how instantly he changed the game today. You saw his composed performance against United in the FA Cup. I mean, he's really grown and emerged and been one of the few players we've been able to manage properly because he stayed fit this whole time. And sure, he's getting more minutes than he probably would have anticipated this season, but he's grown up to the challenge, and he just looks like such a classy player on the ball. His speed of thought, his speed of reaction, and his decisiveness has just improved so much that now he's beating the players. Early on, you could see what he wanted to do, but it was just a touch too slow. Yeah. Now he's doing that, and it's working, and it created the goal today. It created a lot of opportunities, and he just opens up so many things. So happy for him to grow and become a first-team quality player, and happy birthday to him. I think it was his birthday yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Because they posted that photo of him holding the Premier League trophy on Instagram with just this goofy little, like, kind of half-assed grin. Hey, here I am. That was his birthday post. I love it. So, all right. We do need to talk about, as I just, kind of alluded to a minute ago, the transfer news. Oh.
What?
It is, all but like officially official now that they're even talking about it at halftime of the Tottenham and Brighton match.
Yeah, I saw that, but my stream is way ahead of yours, so I didn't want to mention that yet.
Yeah. I mean, like, your stream is like 5.5 minutes. Okay, maybe 30 seconds. So, Ben Davies from Preston North End, it seems, is our center back Band-Aid. Is that what you said in the text message to the group?
I think Will officially
Will?
dubbed that.
Yeah.
Will, with enough time to text, not enough time to join us on the podcast. So you see me after class.
Yeah. So yeah, our center back Band-Aid. First of all, only 6'1", so that's concerning. He's not tall enough, I don't think. But 25-year-old left-footed center back from, as we mentioned, Preston North End in the Championship. Not a guy that most people know much about. Jurgen Klopp himself, even in the post-match interview, joked when someone, he's like, I'm going to give you a name, and you're probably not going to tell me anything about it. But Ben Davies, Preston North End, and Jurgen went, you mean Tottenham? I think he plays for Tottenham, and laughed. That's kind of the reaction. It's been, oh, there's another one? Okay, not the Tottenham guy, another guy? Okay, sweet. So not a whole lot that we know about him, but it's at least somebody to be another, body in the center field or in the center back position, and someone who is actually a center back. in the center back position.
Weird.
I know. A revolutionary concept, playing a player where he's supposed to be played. But what little bit we know about him involves, I was that a passing chart, Alex, that you dug up a minute ago and texted to the group?
Yeah, I saw it online from one of the LFC stats guys online that tends to do those fan articles. I think his name was Sam McGuire, but he just posted passing maps, and it was pretty similar to Virgil van Dijk's, so you can kind of understand why we're going for him. That said, I've only ever seen Preston North End play twice. Once was in person in like 2004 with David Nugent leading the line. So I don't know how relevant that match is to his playing experience. And then I think I watched them play Blackburn to watch Harvey Elliott earlier this season, and they just struck me as like, oh, they're a team.
They exist.
Yeah. If this was the 1920s, I'd be a lot more excited because they were just absolutely dominant back then. But I don't think he is a reincarnation of one of their dominant center backs from the early foundations of the game.
You never know. Yeah, it's if the passing chart is anything legitimately to take anything from, which we don't know for sure, but it shows that he is probably a little bit more comfortable being a bit more of a distributor ball playing center back, which is not what we don't have right now. You've got in the guys that we do have that are possibly coming out, like if Matip comes back, he's okay distributing. He's actually more confident like dribbling forward than he is distributing forward, which I always think is so interesting because he just seems so much like a giraffe that I just don't think he should be doing that. But he seems more confident doing that. Gomez is not. He's okay, but he's a little bit more of a traditional, like stopper. Go chase after somebody, stop the ball, get the ball, win the ball from them. Than he is a distributor. So this would be an added wrinkle that we don't currently have in who we have available outside of when Virgil might come back, if that is something to be, to base it off of, which as of right now, we're not entirely sure if it is actually legit. So yeah, I mean, we know very little, but he's at least somebody who's in that position, and from what we can gather, probably is confident to maneuver the ball around a little bit, which is something that we like to do. We like to play out of the back quite a bit. But even just that, it also was, I think you pointed out, he's an English player, so it's easy to get him in and registered in time to play. I mean, do you have any reaction to something like this being done, Alex?
I'm glad we got somebody. It took way too long. I don't think it should have taken every player at that position to get injured before the club said,
Right.
We probably should buy someone in that position. I don't know. Maybe it's a little more urgent than we thought. No, this should have happened a while ago. We went into the season short of center backs. And then when things got disastrous, when we lost our starting two to catastrophic injuries, There should have been a reconfiguration of plans, even with limited finances in the current times. And our favorite website, The Athletic, has done some recent pieces and done some Reese's pieces as they.
That was a terrible joke. Why would you even make that joke?
Because recent pieces sounded like Reese's Pieces. That's all that it took for me. I will take the low-hanging fruit. But it was fun to watch them go from like the neutral reporting site that we know they are, and all three of them just like were fed up. And we're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting really mad about this. And all of the articles turned into, the club needs to buy a center back. Are they stupid? Maybe. Go buy a center back. And you got some insight into why Jota might have played that match where he got hurt. And basically because if we won the match, we got extra money. And that seemed like exactly what we were going for to potentially change those plans. That said, glad we acted. We've been linked to a myriad of very strange options. I mean, Scrotum Mustafi was one of them, and he's just not very good, so I'm glad we didn't go for him. We were linked to Socrates, very fitting name for the sport that he plays, but he immediately signed for Olympiacos and was not an option. And we've seen the links to Sven Botman return and the club go back to saying like, no, we're not interested. We actually hate him. And we've sent a lot of hate mail to his house and we know where his family lives and are going to TP his house. Like they just were so infuriated by the concept of us potentially signing Sven Botman that the club was like releasing public statements about how dare you.
Right.
So we just finally settled on this random guy. Looks like he fits the profile. He was obviously on the list. I don't think we just like Googled what is a center back. His name popped up. And we've obviously done some scouting. I'm sure we've seen him play our lone players and maybe he stood out. It's just, he seems to have been a mainstay in the Preston team. And I don't think he probably has the ball as much as we do. So that might be interesting to see how he adapts to our different style, but he's going to have to learn quickly because he's probably starting against City. I'm just glad we acted. I'm holding out a faint hope that the fee of £2 million means that we might have some money left over to go buy someone else. I doubt that'll happen. I'm sure the club is pissed that they even had to buy in the first place. Right. Hope he does well. Hope he can step up quickly. Hope that he and Phillips can keep Gabby Jesus quiet next weekend because they're starting.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, we definitely need the midfielders to actually be in the midfield against a team like City. So we'll see how things go. We'll see what sort of impact he might actually have, or whether he's just there to satiate, some practice, some training needs. Who knows really, but. Yeah. We've got him now, or apparently are finalizing the deal for him. So at least making some sort of move, and that's good. You gotta. I feel like in those situations, you have to trust that because we're not a team that makes reactive personnel decisions, especially in purchasing players and all that. That this is a guy that like we at least we're a little bit familiar with, a little bit kind of had some sort of understanding of like, yeah, this is the type of player he is. We've done enough like local scouting to, at least have been like, yeah, he would be a decent fallback option. And we've looked at it a little bit. Hopefully it's not just something that the decision has been made in the past couple of days, Yeah. But hopefully it is a player that we've been looking at least to some level and are like, yeah, this is out of all of the possible like quick fixes that we had sitting around, he's one that we actually wanted to have for some reason. So I'm curious about that because I'm always curious about the players we bring in because we do not buy players willy-nilly, We just don't. We never have under Jurgen Klopp. It was very much kind of more of a Brendan Rodgers thing to do. Like, oh yeah, let's just bring a chunk of a bunch of players and just see who, throw it all at the wall, see what sticks. And with Klopp, it's very much, no. There's very specific types of players that I want, and I'm going to go after these specific types of guys. So we'll see.
Yeah, and we're buying him. It's not a loan. It's not like what we did with Calker that one time. I know our club typically does not ever do loans, but that seemed to be the rumored deal structure for some of these players that we were looking at. But we're purchasing him. So it seems kind of very much with an eye to him being third, fourth choice once everyone's back. Because, we still don't know how these players are going to be when they return from injury. Yeah. If they're going to be more injury prone once they come back.
Yep.
So, it's very much a long-term – it's a short-term fix, but with an eye to maybe a longer-term future because we're keeping him.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a Band-Aid – plus. Band-Aid plus.
It's stitches.
It's stitch. I love it. Well, I think that's a great point to end this episode, to draw this episode, to stitch this episode up, to close up this episode. This gaping wound known as You'll Never Talk Alone. Two big league victories. And we're going up against, Brighton up next, and then leading up to that eventual City match. Going up against the Seagulls, obviously a team that I happen to hold a little bit of affinity for. Zach and I, going there years ago and enjoying a great weekend in Brighton and checking out the Amex. And it's like, I think the Amex was only like 2 years old at the time. I think it was its second season after they had built it. So just phenomenal. But, a team that has not... You were kind of saying, like, before we hit record, they're just a confusing team. Like, they should be better off than they are right now. Barely out of the relegation zone. They should be a little bit better. Right now, still, as of the time of this recording, still leading Tottenham. Who knows what the match, the final score will be by the time we're done recording. But still leading. Do you see anything in this Brighton team that makes you worried about us playing down to their level, which is what we have done in the past couple of weeks? Or do you think that we can see this as an opportunity to keep building the momentum that we need going into that City match?
I think more the latter. They definitely try to play, and maybe they're not as expansive as some of the teams that we play against that also try to play. But them and Wolves just make no sense to me. Like, Brighton create so many chances and pretty much should win every game they're involved, at least according to like the chances they create and the stats numbers behind that. They don't, and so they're like the best worst team. They just don't get points, but they're good. And then Wolves have great players and just play like a nap. Like, they are the team equivalent of going to sleep. They are just so dull and just awful. And so they just confused the hell out of me. But Brighton will be a tricky challenge. It was a tough match last time we played them. It was also the stupidest match I've ever seen at the end, with just this dumb penalty. Yeah. And that has never been called again. Nope. Like, it was just another instance where the PGMOL comes out afterwards like, yeah, that was stupid. I don't know why that happened. That was definitely a mistake.
Yep.
Sure that helps. Like, I hope that makes you feel better. So, as long as we don't breathe in the direction of Danny Welbeck in the box, I think we'll be fine. But we've got to, now that we found our scoring boots, we need to score a lot of goals so that something like that doesn't happen again, because that's what it took to turn 3 points into 1 point, was a slight graze of someone's toe and just terrible decision makers with whistles and monitors. So that's what we got to watch out for. It should be a fun match. It'll be a tough first test for Ben Davies, because he's going to be up against a team that likes to create a lot of chances. And I'm sure Hendo and Klopp will tell him to go easy on Lallana.
That's our buddy. Don't you?
Yeah, and one more thing about Ben Davies that I think we just talked about as we were live texting our thread, that I don't know if it was crossover, but he played at Fleetwood Town and I think was managed by Joey Barton if he played there at the right time. So he's going to be ready to get drunk and go fight people, which is what we need more of on the team.
Yeah, that's the actual... Forget having a passing center back. We need a center back who's just ready to get lit and throw it down, man. Absolutely.
It's like... I don't... Static X playing in the background as he's ready to go fight some buddies.
Oh, man. All right. You feeling good about a victory over Brighton?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 3-1 win, because that seems to be what we do now.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? I'm right there with you. Yeah. And it's even less so because of our current form. It's more so also because as much as I love them, I just feel like Brighton doesn't know how to close matches out
or score goals.
Yeah, or score. So yeah, why not? Okay, that'll wrap things up here on this episode of You'll Never Talk Alone. It's good to actually get a real episode back out there, floating out there into the world. But thank you for joining us. A busy week, and we'll hopefully have a chance to talk more before we get into the matchup against Manchester City. We'll have to see how the week goes, how our personal schedules go, and whether I am passed out on a couch coughing up a lung or something again, like I have been the past week. So thanks for tuning in. That's Alex Level. Alex, thanks.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm your friend Joseph Craven. This has been You'll Never Talk Alone. Let's kick it over to Andrew Ainsworth to sign us out.